Pro-Palestinian protests on American university campuses are garnering global attention, with student protesters calling on the U.S. to cut ties with Israel. From California to Massachusetts, college campuses have witnessed a series of large demonstrations over the past week. The South California University in Los Angeles turned into a battlefield, with the police arresting hundreds of pro-Palestinian student protesters.
The people of Gaza have continued to show incredible determination and strength and resilience in their fight for liberation against the Israeli regime, against the genocide that they're experiencing, and so we hope to embody the same spirit of resistance.
In Austin, troopers in riot gear entered the campus of the University of Texas to disperse pro-Palestinian protesters. A group called the Palestine Solidarity Committee organized the protests. According to reports, at least 10 people were detained. At New York's Columbia University, pro-Palestinian protest encampments continued on campus. Students protesting Israel's war with Hamas are demanding that the school cut financial ties to Israel and divest from companies that are enabling its conflict. Jewish students have complained that the protests are veering into anti-Semitism and making them afraid to enter the campus.
So when I walk onto campus from my home, because this has attracted so many protesters from outside and people are on either side of the gates, I feel quite unsafe because a lot of them can tend to be quite violent. They tend to chant a lot of anti-Semitic slurs. So when I come to campus, a lot of the time I will hide my Jewish symbols for my own safety. So I don't really feel so safe coming to campus, no.
Student protests over Israel's war with Hamas have gained momentum at Harvard University in Cambridge, Massachusetts. There, students are asking the university to separate themselves from any companies that are advancing Israel's military efforts in Gaza. In Minneapolis, student protests spread to the University of Minnesota, with calls urging the institute to divest in any partnership with Israel. All right, for more on this, we are now being joined by Adrian Calamel, who is a fellow at the Arabian Peninsula Institute and also a terrorism and Middle Eastern scholar. He's joining us live from New York. Adrian, great to see you again, and welcome back to WION. Yesterday, we saw Speaker of the House with a group of Republicans go to Columbia University. What they said was basically they congratulated sarcastically these protesters and said that you have the endorsement of Hamas. What is happening right now?
Thank you for having me back, Susan, and it's a pleasure to be back on the show. What's happening on the university? I think we have to take a look at which universities and where these activities are taking place. Columbia has long been a center of this type of activity. It was one of the early movements in the BDS system for a couple decades now. So there has always been a real concern. And what we have seen is one group in America that seems to be organizing a lot is a group called Social Justice for Palestine. And they are affiliated with the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, which is a Marxist Palestinian group. And in Columbia, at Columbia, what you have is you have a student body that has come in probably to a degree radicalized. Then you have professors who, not just in the history, sociology, those type of fields, but over into the STEM fields as well, who are radicalized as well, who are children of the 60s, who have imbibed in this Marxist ideology. And we're seeing it play out on what are considered elite campuses. I would consider them more elitist campuses.
And Adrian, we're moving into the presidential election. It appears that these protesters are angry with President Biden, his support for Israel on the one hand, and on the other hand, even if the schools close, Are we going to see a summer of riots and protests until the elections?
Yes, I fully expect that. That's a great question. I fully expect that, Susan. I think this is going to look very similar to the protests that we saw leading up to the 2020 election. This is going to be no different. It's going to be around a different situation that has foreign policy implications. I also think that with these students that are on these campuses and the arrests that are being made, especially at public universities, um, students who are here on student visas, those should be revoked and they should be deported. I was a student once in Canada, and I knew I was on a visa, and not that I was going to run afoul of the law, but you're visiting that country and should be grateful. But when you're looking to sow insurrection with these other groups, then you kind of forfeit that opportunity to an education in this country.
Yeah, especially at these elite universities, and the other students seem to be terrified going and walking on campus. Adrian, a pleasure to talk to you always. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Susan.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.